The Super Adventure Box finally came back, but it seems that most of the peripheral lore for the box was removed for whatever reason, or was it? Behind the adventure, the shiny colors and all the smiling faces lies an ominous and very suspicious origin story. Welcome to Mindspike. For the better part of 2 years now, large parts of the Guild Wars 2 community have been up in arms about getting back the famed Asuran device known as the Super Adventure Box, built by the Asura Moto. And now, finally, the box is returned, and with it, my own insane addiction to it. In lore, the Super Adventure Box is created by the Asura Moto as a learning/adventure game for all Tyrians to partake in. The story inside the box is rather simple to grasp on the surface. We, the hero, set out to rescue Princess Mia from the evil Lord Vanquish high in his castle that we may one day get to see. On our way there, we do what normal heroes do: gather loot, improve our skills, pillage, plunder, murder, burn, and destroy everything and almost everyone in our paths. You know, the usual hero stuff. In the grand scheme of it all, the actual in-box story is an extremely curious one, and something we definitely should discuss once the story actually gets elaborated on in the future. But for now, I'd simply like to focus on the involved characters. Now, you might think I try to rationalize the evidence behind the fact that Betty Bobble is an absolute savage. Obviously, that's not what this video is about. After all, Betty is nothing more than a virtual representation of someone's imagination. Wait, Moto, the creator, on the other hand, well, he's a special kind of creature with a seemingly deep-rooted, dark, and secretive background story, which is exactly what I want to talk with you guys about. Last time the box was opened, we also got a short story to go along with it called Shadowbox, which tells part of the story of how the Super Adventure Box came to be. The full story can be found in the description down below, but I'll give you a abridged version. The story starts off with Moto getting kicked out of his lab and his crew for unspecified reasons. He stood in the streets of Radasum in the driving rain, the container holding his meager belongings sacked from the downpour. All he had left after 2 years of collaboration was reduced to his box of possessions. All he had were his belongings and the dream of building an invention that was grand and heroic, showy and magical. It was something his crew had never been able to join him on. With nowhere to go, Moto wandered Radasum. Here he bumps into a few individuals, one of which is the Asura called Echo, who owns a fish shop selling luminescent fish, who end up making fun of Moto for not having enough copper to get a real meal. In a desperate attempt to get his project back up and running, Moto tries to contact a possible investor named Lord, who, to Moto's dismay, sends him away due to the fact that, well, Moto doesn't even have any product to show Lord to which gold could be invested. All he has is dream and an idea. So Moto builds a makeshift lab in a closed off Dynamics dormitory shower area, closed due to showers apparently turning the students' skin luminescent. Dynamics technicians had been stumped until an anonymous tip had fingered Echo's fish stand. As Peacemaker had carried Echo away, he'd claimed someone had stolen his phosphorescent agents. Such a lucky coincidence for Moto, right? In this lab, Moto worked hard for weeks on end. Moto channeled raw emotions to keep working. Fear assembled the casing, pride laced the power crystals through the architecture. He pictured his old crew and how after he got famous they would cry in his shadow for kicking him out. That anger led Moto finish programming the characters. Before he knew it, the prototype clicked into one seamless unit. Moto gazed upon his creation and smiled, but that was absorbed by exhaustion. Just a nap, he mused. Then I'll test it. Unfortunately, Moto wakes up to the sound of Lord, whom Moto had made a new appointment with to get the funding he would need to actually realize his dream. But as Moto hears Lord's voice from his sleep, he panics. He thought he would have had more time, so Moto hadn't even tested the prototype. Lord studied the cube sitting on the table. What does it do? Lord activated the cube's power crystal as Moto prepared an apology. Well, Moto started, only to be cut off. In every direction, the room made of tile and metal was transformed. Stylish, blocky green grass sprung out of the floor, while the ceiling was painted a rich blue dotted with smiling white clouds. Along the floor, flowers perked up in the grass and rows of trees emerged in the silent splendor. In the distance, a beautiful blonde girl appeared. She gave Moto an energetic wave. He didn't think he had polished the characters, but the princess model was done, and more, she reminded Moto of her. It worked, despite the lack of funds, the poor conditions, and the fact that it seems like Moto actually didn't refine the machine himself. So how could this be? At the very end of the short story, as Moto is looking upon the virtual landscape before him, Princess Mia stands before him. The princess smiled and waved to Moto. Moto lifted his hand to wave back, but froze when he spotted an ominous shadow in the shape of himself behind her. Moto blinked, and the shadow was gone. Now, what in the world is this shadow? To try and answer that, we have to go back to something which only existed in the game the second time the box was around. Back then, we had 2 playable worlds, like we do now, but we also had a tiny part of World 3 to explore. There wasn't really anything inside this third world, a cave with some water and a few jagged rocks here and there, but at the end of the cave, we met the genie of the box, who congratulated us on our bravery and skill and said that we should be rewarded with a secret. Moto won't tell you this, but there's a secret way to win the Super Adventure Box. You must defeat the true enemy's machine. Destroy the true enemy's machine and you will win. Go forward, be the winner. He or it gives you a code and sends you on your way, and as you arrive at the true enemy's machine, you enter the code and see this.
The sublattice is aligned, the refracting core is nominal, and the data slipstream is at 200 units per pulse. Phase 1, complete. Just let me get tethered in and we're ready to go.
Wart, Nimb, maintain the oscillations and make sure the flux lines remain free and clear.
We don't need those. We'll be fine.
What did I teach you? Always have a flux line so your experiment will be fine. Wart, watch that line. Keto, are you ready?
To be the next Snap Prize winner? Absolutely.
One step at a time. Starting the power-up for Phase 2.
So relaxing. So much knowledge.
Subject is in pre-sleep state. Neural connection is tethered to the data slipstream. Moving to Phase 3. Phase 3 is a go. Full amplification.
Waffles exist in every dimension. I can do the funky moa. The char stole every towel. I am the color orange.
Start initiating the shutdown protocol.
My head. What's happening? What's going on?
Just hold still. We're containing a mysterious surge. Nim, Wart, dissipate the aethos flow along the tertiary circuit. All right, disengage Keto.
Oh, I feel like someone shoved too many books in my brain. Stupid books. Books with pictures in them. I thought I had everything perfect. I can't believe I fouled this up so badly.
Stay calm. We'll get to the bottom of this.
By the way, what's a waffle?
Well, to make a long story short, it turns out that the true enemy is Moto's old crew, and we effectively just destroyed their work with the help of a genie. The machine his old crew seems to have been building was an actual learning machine, which would allow users to take in knowledge while they were asleep by projecting it directly into the subject's brain, probably by using some of the same technology as Moto used for his box, but just with less rainbows and princesses. Now, if you stayed after the machine had blown up, you got a bit more dialogue out of his crew.
He did it. I know he did.
Look at the facts. Look at what you can observe and analyze.
I primed the data strata, balanced the flow inhibitors, and set the feedback relays to nominal. It should have worked.
It should have, but there was a malfunction.
He did it.
A malfunction. Let's find it and sort it before you go sparking around like a loose transistor. Here, look at this.
I can't believe I missed it.
Well, it was subtle. You'd have to know to look for it.
Didn't he pull a prank exactly like this before he was expelled from the crew?
Yes. Yes, he did.
Still don't believe he did
He has
it?
witnesses. None of the peacemakers I talked to saw him leave the promenade.
You asked me to observe and analyze. Well, this is my analysis. He did it. Somehow.
as it seems, they're accusing Moto of sabotaging their machine based on the sole evidence that he apparently did something similar before. Most likely, that was exactly what got Moto kicked out of the crew in the first place. Now, the curious thing about all of this is that if you decide to return to Moto after you've sabotaged the machine, to tell him about the genie and the true enemy's machine, he says, "I think you've been in the Super Adventure Box too long. I suggest you take a break. Yes, some fresh air will bestow some positive side effects." Moto seems to completely dismiss the existence of the genie and disregard anything you tell him. Sure, the inner workings of the Super Adventure Box seems to have been built on the futuristic concept of true immersive virtual reality, practically beamed into the user's brain. The world inside the Super Adventure Box only ever exists in the mind of its user. What you experience inside the box may as well just be an interactive dream world, a perceived reality, only ever as real as you perceive it to be. And so with a machine like that, it wouldn't be completely illogical to conclude that any and all ideas and beliefs that you may find that you're taking upon yourself as a result of using the Super Adventure Box could just as well be pre-programmed pieces of code designed to make you, the user, take on a quest to destroy the true enemy's machine, or other such things, much like a movie that many of you already know. Essentially, what we're talking about here is brainwashing, but regardless of the end goal, the true question is actually who put the idea in there, and what exactly created the Super Adventure Box, because on the surface, it doesn't really seem like Moto is the kind of guy who would be malicious like that. As I see it, there are two possible explanations, one less believable than the other. So let's backtrack a little bit. It seems like Moto doesn't have any knowledge, or at the very least, he's just not openly talking about why he was kicked out of his crew. It's never explained exactly how the product of Echo, the Asura who laughed at Moto, ended up contaminating the dormitory showers that Moto so conveniently built his lab in. We have no idea how Moto's dream unexpectedly became a reality when the Super Adventure Box suddenly worked after nothing more than a long nap. And at the end of this entire chain of events, we have no idea who or what the genie in the box actually is and why it led us to destroy Moto's ex-crew's machine. Now, most people point to the genie for an explanation as to all of Moto's fortunes. In the Guild Wars universe, a genie or a djinn is known to inhabit or protect certain objects of power or significance. Most commonly, the djinn protect different areas of land, such as volcanoes or rivers, which usually cause the djinn to take on the shape of their respective element, such as fire or water. These were mostly seen in Guild Wars 1 though. The most famed djinn in the Guild Wars 2 universe, however, is Summeros, who's inhabiting the Mystic Forge. And so, in this regard, it would make sense for the djinn to take on the thematic 8-bit nature of the Super Adventure Box, assuming it was inhabiting the box itself and wasn't just a piece of code. But there's a completely different flaw in this idea from the very start. The many events leading up to the actual creation of the box extends back several weeks before it even came to be, which would imply that the genie had just been floating about for quite some time at least, not bound to anything other than perhaps Moto, which seems like very unlikely behavior. Now, even though Moto seems to not give off any clues as to whether or not he even knows about the genie inside the box, we can actually find books which specifically tell us to avoid the genie. Of course, that's not the only weird book we can find in there, as there's also one which heavily outlines why Moto and Princess Mia aren't just the same person with a wig and a dress on. Now, if that wasn't enough weirdness for you, do you want to know why the genie isn't around in the box anymore? Why World 3 was scrapped or the code was cut from the box? It's because the machine that the genie set us on a mission to destroy a year and a half ago now has been built into the Super Adventure Box. The stolen design is literally sitting on top of Moto's machine, and all Moto has to say about any changes to the box is that I had a very brief moment to squash a few bugs and add small bits of polish. Your experience in the box will be better than ever. I'm sorry, what? Moto should know full well where this design comes from and how it ended up on top of his machine and why it ended up on top of his machine. And so the real question becomes, is the genie actually real? Or is it simply a manifestation of Moto's desires? I personally believe in the latter, but I don't believe Moto is actually fully aware. I believe that Moto suffers from what is known as dissociative identity disorder, also known as multiple personality disorder. In short, dissociative identity disorder is characterized by the appearance of at least two distinct or relatively enduring identities or dissociated personality states that alternately control the person's behavior. This disorder is a highly controversial psychiatric disorder with no clear consensus on diagnostic criteria due to its endlessly possible manifestations in different individuals. It's somewhat ironic that a mental disorder named to describe the appearance of several personalities in one mind is so hard to properly define due to its many differing appearances in reality. But nevertheless, if we look at Moto in this light, as an Asura suffering from such a horrible psychiatric disorder, to me at least, this entire story suddenly begins to make sense. The reason why Moto has no real idea why he was kicked out of his crew, how Echo's phosphorescent material got into the dormitory water, how the super venture box was finished, where he got a hold of his ex-crew's machines to sign, what the shadow behind Princess Mia is, why Moto is so hellbound on pointing out the dissimilarities between himself and Princess Mia, and most importantly, who and what the genie is and what it wants, is because in actuality, the individual we know as Moto is only one of several possible personalities in the same body. The shadow he sees in the story is a reflection of his own inner desires manifested to bring about the creation of the Super Adventure Box and rid his path of any competition. This part of Moto is the one who programmed the box, sabotaged his crew, framed Echo, and coded the genie into the box to manipulate the user, us, to take care of some dirty business. There is no unusual magic involved. There is no Jinn. There's only Moto and his dissociative identity disorder. Hell, Princess Mia may even just be another aspect of Moto's possible personalities for all we know. The best part about this entire theory is that Moto wouldn't even necessarily know that he was suffering from anything. He could basically live his entire life not knowing what happens when his mind drifts away, because all of what Moto's shadow does, Moto can't ever remember. Still, it does however seem that Moto believes something to be wrong. The books, Moto's dismissing attitude and general ignorance could be nothing more than a cleverly constructed veil to hide the fact that Moto cannot explain what is happening to him or his device. Obviously, as always, this is only a theory, one that I find to be extremely interesting, as it sets Moto in a whole new light, not as a clumsy bystander, but as an Asura heavily at work to piece his own life together. But, as with any theory, I may of course just be wrong. The principle of Occam's razor would perhaps suggest that the most likely reality is the one with the least amount of speculations behind. Maybe it really is just a Jinn who found a liking to Moto's creation, but till the day that the box is expanded upon, we might never know for certain. And so, for now, that's all I've got for you guys this time. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, I will see you in the mists.